You ever get that feeling that the rules of the game are changing, but you're not quite sure how or why? Well, today we're going to break down a whole series of UK government decisions from the last decade or so. Looked at on their own, they might just seem like business as usual. But when you start connecting the dots, a pattern emerges. And it's a pattern that could have a really big impact on democracy in the UK. Sound familiar? You know, that feeling of unease, of not being totally sure where the lines are drawn anymore? This isn't just a random feeling people are having. It's a huge clue to the whole phenomenon we're about to unpack. So, what are we actually talking about here? It's not some big dramatic moment, no single event you can point to. It's more like a slow, steady squeeze. The term for it is democratic compression, and it's this gradual process where lots of little decisions, many of them probably well-intentioned, just add up. And what they add up to is a shrinking space for your voice and for holding power accountable. Okay, but how does this compression actually happen? I mean, it's not just a theory, right? It's a story you can actually see unfolding through real-world events. So let's walk through a timeline of some key decisions and see exactly how this pattern has taken shape right here in the UK. So our story really kicks off between 2016 and 2019. This is when there was a big push for digital government services, all in the name of efficiency, of course. Then, boom, the pandemic hits, and with it come emergency powers that pretty much put speed before scrutiny. And then right after that, we start to see the rules around public protests getting tighter. You see the progression here? And this is where it gets really crucial. The pandemic didn't just change our day-to-day lives, it fundamentally changed the pace of governing. The need to move fast created a new precedent, a new normal, where fast-tracking decisions kind of became more important than that slow, sometimes messy, but absolutely essential process of democratic debate. And the momentum just keeps going. Between 2022 and 2023, the One Login for Government system gets rolled out, basically a single digital key for all your government services. Then the Online Safety Act gets passed, which is a huge piece of legislation for regulating the internet. And on top of that, there are moves to postpone local elections. Each one is a major event on its own, but when you put them all together, they tell a pretty powerful story. And here's the really subtle but clever part. You were never really asked if you wanted a national digital ID system. You were just told that to get your essential services, you had to use it. Your consent wasn't asked for, it was just assumed. And that right there is a total game changer. And that brings us right up to today. You've got proposals on the table to link passport photos to facial recognition databases. And for a lot of people, the penny is really starting to drop. Suddenly, all these separate little decisions, things that seemed totally unrelated, start to look like a single, coherent picture. And for many, that picture is, well, it's pretty worrying. You know, this right here gets to the absolute heart of the problem. Technology is like the hare, just racing ahead at lightning speed. And democracy, it's the tortoise, doing its best to keep up. But that gap between what's technically possible and what's democratically okay is just getting wider and wider every day. Okay, so we've looked at all the individual puzzle pieces. Now let's step back and look at the whole picture. What does it all really add up to? Turns out it's a four-step pattern that's both incredibly simple and really profound. So here it is, the four-step recipe for democratic compression. Step 1, you limit access to essential services. Step 2, you just imply consent instead of actually asking for it. Step 3, you let the rules fall way behind the technology. And the final ingredient? Trust in the system starts to erode. It's a really powerful and, frankly, dangerous combination. So, what do you do with all this information? It's really easy to feel kind of overwhelmed by it all, maybe even a bit powerless. But what if there was a simple, really effective way to turn that concern into constructive action? That's what we're going to dig into next. This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you hold power to account when the problem isn't one big, obvious target, but a slow, creeping change? The answer, as it turns out, might be a lot simpler than you think. So let's forget the protests and petitions just for a moment. The most powerful tool you have in this situation might not be a placard, but a question. A direct, specific, and totally nonpartisan question sent to the very people who are paid to answer to you. And to make it even easier, our source material actually provides a blueprint, a simple letter template that you can use to ask your MP for the answers that you deserve. And let's be absolutely clear about this. This is not about picking a fight. It's about starting a conversation. This letter isn't an attack. It's a request for information. It's a tool for anyone, no matter your politics, who believes in that simple but powerful idea that government should be transparent and accountable to the people they serve.
The letter gets straight to the point. It asks 4 key questions that, honestly, you have a right to know the answers to. Like, what's the real-world impact of the Online Safety Act on vulnerable people? What's actually being done to protect local democracy? Where's the proof that our data is safe in this new digital ID system? And how are police balancing their new powers with our fundamental rights? These are not radical questions. They're the absolute bedrock of a healthy democracy.
And look, this isn't about getting a politician's opinion. It's about getting the facts. This letter is your way of saying, show me the evidence, show me the reports, show me you've done the homework. It's about holding them to a higher standard of accountability.
So if this conversation has sparked something in you, if you think these questions deserve answers, then we've got something for you. Our sources provided a template for this very letter, and you can find a link to it right there in the description below. It's a simple, powerful way to make your voice heard. And we'll leave you with this one final, crucial thought from our source material. These questions are democratic, not extremist. Never, ever forget that. Asking questions, demanding answers, holding power to account, that's not just your right, it's your responsibility. It's what keeps democracy alive.